Hi guys, and welcome back to another Guild Wars 2 episode. Today we are completing the Echoes of the Past quest for the Living World Season 2. We have started off by going back to Fort Selma and checking in on everything there. Obviously we have to fight some more stuff on our way in. And overall, this quest was pretty good. It tied up a couple of things, and then, definitely was needed to help progress the story, so that's good. Story progression is good. So in this part, we are meeting up with Casimir and Marjorie. And we, see Marjorie's sister who died in the last part of the quest. And then her sister infused Marjorie's sword with her soul. So I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of like, oh, well, Marjorie is obviously gonna be stronger now, right? You'll see at the end of this, I still get very frustrated with Marjorie and Casimir, and I'm hoping for the next episode I can actually record at least my voice for bits and pieces of it, because I was talking quite a bit of smack talk to Marjorie and Casimir for the final battle at the end of this video. And obviously I don't record my voice while I'm playing, so all of that is gone, and that's just not something I could even try to recreate. I would never, I could still feel the rage, but I'm not gonna say everything in the same manner of which it should be delivered. And then we go and we meet Traherne at the next fort in the Silver Wastes, and the story progresses fairly quickly through this next part, and then we see a little bit of everybody here and there throughout this quest, so it's just kind of connecting some of the dots. So, Traherne is getting the pact ready for the next dragon fight, and we just had the summit, so we are trying to get everything organized. And so one of the reconnaissance teams is missing that Keith is in charge of, so we have to go and rescue her. Taimi is around, Brahm is around. We touch base with them and see what they're up to. It kind of, some of the people that we talk to are some of the masters back to that first part of the Living World season, where we were trying to rescue the Master of Peace. So kind of, hey, remember we were doing this? So it does try to, keep us going on that storyline. Because obviously the main part of this story was the rescue of the Master of Peace, and we it feels like we almost got sidetracked with Mordramoth and the ley lines and Scarlet's history, which I'm not gonna lie, I liked those distractions. Those were nice distractions for me. It gave a lot of backstory. And I still, like, I've been trying to figure out why they just converted the living world, like, season 1 to that history lesson, and why we don't get to play that anymore. Like, it was a limited edition thing, I get that, but I feel like this game's also been out long enough that it should at least be some sort of option to play. I mean, I would play through it, obviously. I love this story, and it seems like the people in charge of writing the story are really good at writing stories. They seem like they're pretty good at which direction, you know, they want you to go and to keep you interested in it. And I mean, every story has a slow part, like that's just the nature. I've yet to read a book that didn't have at least one slow part in it. And I mean, some of the best stories have some of the slowest parts. So it's interesting, and I'm curious to see what else we do in the Silver Wastes. It seems like there is a lot going on, and I kind of felt out of place here. It was very difficult for me to really get a sense of where I was supposed to be going. I mean, I know I'm bad at navigating, and I have no sense of direction, and I know that, I'm aware of that, and I try to, you know, check my map frequently and check the mini map and make sure I'm heading in the right direction. But this is very uneven terrain, very cliffy, few canyons here and there, so it wasn't not the most difficult place to navigate, and I hear that there are some challenging places coming up, but was not the easiest. So not hard enough that I had to like look up where I was going, but this was also one of the easiest vistas to get to. Vistas aren't something I really touch base on at all in the series, but every part of the map has these essentially lookout points, and for the most part it's not the easiest to get to. It's, you know, a jumping puzzle or just really high up. I know a lot of people can get there with some of their mounts and stuff that they have access to later on in the game. So it's just a different aspect of it. And if you actually ever notice my map completion, I haven't focused on map completion at all with this character. I've just been bouncing around. As soon as it tells me to go to the next area, I have been, and realistically that's only possible because I was level 80 from the start of this character. Generally speaking, like, you are gonna have lulls in the story. Like, you're gonna have to stop and progress to a certain level to continue on with your storyline. So, excuse me. So, it did allow me to kind of skip doing a bunch of like the heart quests, and doing a bunch of like that side stuff. And map completion does give you experience, so when you're lower levels, completing all those different things, getting the vistas, the waypoints, the hearts, it gives you experience to level up your character. So we're trying to find Keith, and the interesting part of this is you can choose to utilize mines, and then the mines like blow up a pack of the Mordramoth wolves, and it's an interesting mechanic. Like, instead of having to go through and fight multiple packs of these wolves, you can just do a little zigzag and find your way through to cave a little easier. Wouldn't be one of my quests if I didn't die instantly because poison. Why would I pay attention to poison on the ground? That's not what I do. I just rush in. I just jump right on in there. Sometimes I'm really, really good at being cautious and stealthy, and sometimes I am not. And then also with this, I had messed with some of my key bindings a little bit, so I was just a little like, oh, I had to move my fingers a little bit differently than I had been previously. So, but overall, this part of the quest was just fighting more Mordramoth things, and I think I've said Mordramoth 5 different ways now. I can never remember. So it was interesting too, getting to work with Keith, because this is like the second time I think really this character has gotten to work with Keith. You know, different characters get to work with different main characters. So your race, your choices that you make affects like which character companions and things you work with. So, and it helps give you a different perspective of the story and different viewpoints of the story, which is nice. I do like that aspect of how it is slightly different based on the character and race that you play. And I don't know how much class plays into differences. I think the story is pretty much the same. I think your very beginning part is slightly different, and some of the choices and stuff you have to make are slightly different, but ultimately you end up in a same destination. So, and this was, I'm totally losing my train of thought. I am so sorry. So some of this felt a little stretched out with the cave part, like, oh, now I've got to fight, now I've got to wait, but it didn't really detract much, but there wasn't much to do other than fight and wait it out, which the waited out quests are kind of meh. It's nicer when they have like a purpose, or you're traveling, and so the wait doesn't feel like much of a wait because you're actually like traveling from point A to point B, where there's a specific like part that triggers the next thing. So it is interesting how like throughout the living world, like they still have cut scenes, but it's like scenery. So they really want you to be like, look at this great world, this beautiful world we've created. It's fantastic. It's amazing. And I'm like, yeah, but the story. I want to, you know, have the cutscene with the story, because I realized during part of this too, like, I had not remembered, like, oh yeah, our goal was to find the Master of Peace. Our goal was not to destroy Mordramoth when we set out. Like, that was not our original goal. So I had to be like, oh yeah, I did know. I did know that. So it's funny. So I anticipate with the next part of this storyline that we are going to ramp it up a little bit, I want to say. So I feel like it's gonna start picking up the pace and like have a lot more action coming up. At least I hope, like it feels like it is. Like this feels like it's a very big build up to something. And I know part of like the season 2 was to transition from Guild Wars 2, like the main original base game, to the first expansion, Heart of Thorns. So I am assuming Heart of Thorns is going to be all about Mordramoth. And it's going to be about, you know, that battle. I'm not 100% sure. I've done very little research into it. I want to enjoy the story for what it is, and like I don't mind spoilers. Like I quite frequently spoil the story for myself with many things, but in this particular case I've gotten backstory a little bit, so like I've been kind of filled in on what, you know, the original Guild Wars was sort of about. I don't have a whole lot of information, but it's come up a couple of times where I've been like, oh, like this clearly linked to somewhere. So yeah, this part, the part where I had to meet the archaeologist again, I really had to read. And there was another part later on where I had to read too, and like it could have been a cut, like this part maybe not so much a cutscene, but there are parts where could have easily been a cutscene here or there. And I also figured out like these lengthy parts of waiting, like my character loads in before the load screen ends, right? And then on the playback in the video, the load screen isn't as long. I don't know, it's weird. It's weird how that has seemed to work out, but that's happened a couple of times in this video where the wait screen seemed like it should have been longer, and there was no rhyme or reason for my character to be standing around for as long as she was. But so now we made our way to the Priory, which I have not been to before on any character. Not gonna lie, took me a hot minute to remember about the Priory and who the Priory were, and to kind of be like, oh, yeah, I know who that is. Yeah, I don't know how I could forget them, but I did. So we made up with Marjorie and Casimir again. We're looking through the library of the Priory, and sends me on a ridiculous quest that I admit I did not read what I was supposed to do. So then I was just like, oh, I'm apparently looking for books? Helps to read is the moral of the story. this is what I mean about cutscenes. If it just would give me a cutscene, I wouldn't have to read and I could watch it and absorb all the information. And instead, they're just like, look at this pretty statue. Look at these pretty vines. I'm like, yes, your artwork is amazing and fantastic, but give me story. Give me story. So, yeah, we found our books. We opened up the magical hidden bookcase, which, if you're gonna go through the hassle of hiding a bookcase, or not a bookcase, a staircase, if you go through the hassle of hiding a staircase to where you have to read like specific books to unlock it, like, why do you have it open up in the middle of the floor? Granted, it looks cool. You have it open up, you just make all the bookcases just go down, and like, there's 20, 30 people in this library reading books. Like, there's 5 just in the little circle where the bookcases disappear. Like, it's not a secret that it's there. Like, obviously, if somebody was trying to break in, like, it'd be well hidden, I guess. I mean, I guess they're not trying to hide it from other Priory members, but it just seemed a little strange, right? Like, I kind of was expecting like one of the bookcases to open up or something like that. Like, I was not expecting the entire floor to open up. Like, just the entire floor just opens up. There's the staircase to go down. Like, my first thought was, I hope that's just his office and they don't keep like valuable things down here. And then they do keep valuable things down there. And then we end up talking to the dwarf, which I did learn after we talked with Ogden, that he was part of the original Guild Wars game, which is pretty cool that they had that. But then they've got this fancy little hourglass that you go in, and now you're in, I'm gonna call it the Crystal World. It's gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous. And you get separated from Marjorie and Casimir, which is fine. And you meet up with them later on. Like, you have to navigate through and go through the different parts. So you end up having to fight the different facets. So the first one was a facet of strength, and it kind of took me a little while to get the hang of beating it up, and then once I was like, oh, okay, it went pretty quickly. This one was just, what was this one? This one didn't have a puzzle to it. The first facet didn't really. It just, you couldn't face it the way I kept facing it because it would just knock you off the edge and you'd have to start over, essentially. So once I was like, oh, okay, it knocks me back, I was like, all right, I can, you know, get around that. So I eventually beat him up. Eventually, I say, because again, I'm not very good at this game. I love it. I love the story, but I admit I'm not very good at it. It's just open and shut case. So after you defeat the facet, it opens up the, like, it's kind of like a memory. It's essentially this, like, hologram of something that was happening. It didn't really say much or give you much indication. Like, I couldn't tell how much attention I was supposed to pay to that happening. So it was a little strange, but other than that, we made it through. But it's interesting how in each of these different parts of the episode it has different things they're trying out. So like the first quest we had those obnoxious shards, which yes, I'm still salty about the shards. I will never not be salty about the shards. It's just, that's how it is. They frustrated me. And I kind of figured out why after playing through this episode, and it's because it didn't connect to anything. Like, it didn't help the story at all, and it felt kind of like they just threw this at you and then didn't really use it again. So we heard Casimir say Glint, and I did know Glint is a dragon from the first Guild Wars. I think she's from the first Guild Wars, but there's a whole history there. And Casimir and Marjorie are sort of talking about it while you're going through this, because you're fractured and you're separated, but like you can still see them at different points of it. So you can get some background information on the stuff that's happening. So in this part, they introduced almost like a puzzle mechanic. So like we had the mines with the wolf pack at the beginning, and now we have this color-coded thing where you have to defeat the little mini facet, and then once you defeat the little mini facet, it gives you a color, and then you go to that color and you get the shield, and the shield lets you go on the glitter fire. I don't really know what else to call it other than glitter fire. It's very pretty, but it's glitter fire. And then, it's an interesting thing, slightly annoying, but alright, cool. Like, it serves a purpose. And then you go through this part, and again, like, it took me a little while to figure out, like, obviously, duh, right? Glitter fire bad is the moral of this part of it. And so we defeat this facet, and then we get, the next little puzzle thing, or not puzzle thing, my goodness, I can talk. Memory. We get to the next memory thing, and we hear a little bit more of Casimir and Marjorie talking about the story of what happened with Glint and Destiny's Edge, and how so many people blamed Logan for problems and the loss, essentially, which yeah, maybe him being there would have helped, maybe him being there wouldn't, like, so who knows. And then, oh yeah, I was talking about the different episodes, and so frustrated by shards, moved on to the next one. They had you do, like, you had to run around the map and do the map events, so it was kind of like, oh, by the way, this is happening in the world you're in. Like, these events are related to the story you're doing. These events are, necessary to have friends with for the most part. Like, this is a community, this is what's happening with your map. And so it was an interesting facet to see, like, that, and it made sense, and it made you aware of the gameplay, and it kind of, if you are like me where you're very into the story and very into progressing your character's storyline and you're not really into the world as a whole, this kind of pops the bubble and be like, oh, you need to pay attention to the whole world and not just your bubble. So that was an interesting way to go about that, which I thought was, oh, pretty cool. Like, oh, we have to actually incorporate, like, you can't just, I mean, you can, but for that particular thing, you cannot. You have to have, generally, you need help for most of those map quests to do it. I'm sure if your character was strong enough, you could. So we moved on to the third area. And this was, again, another puzzle mechanic. I'll call it a puzzle mechanic because it's not explained to you. They're not holding your hand through this. I had to read the little buff on the bottom right-hand side of my health. I had to be like, what is happening? And you had to read, like, what the monster was doing. And I was like, oh, okay. So it introduced the system where you cannot defeat a vortex crystal by just beating on it. Like, you can't. But it introduced this fragility debuff, which made you fragile. And it gave you 1 hit point, which is why you see my hit points drop from like 20,000 to 1. And then you have to click onto the vortex crystal, be close enough to the crystal, which in this point, the thief yeeting themselves around the playing field was helpful. Because I could just click onto the crystal and it would take it, and I could, it would hit it, and then I could smack the big facet that I needed to hit. So once I figured out the mechanic of it, it was pretty simple. It's just a matter of actually, like, oh, you can't mindlessly play through it. Like, you can't. You have to actually, like, think a little bit and pay attention to what's going on around you, which is nice because there are a lot of games where you can just put your head down and kind of la-di-da-di-da-di-da your way through it. And I like that Guild Wars too kind of makes you go, pay attention. So we get through the second one, and third one, number 3, we get through the third one. I can count. And we go to the last little area. We go to the last little area, and we get to, like, big boss battle-y thing, which, I mean, as we know, I'm not the greatest. I'm not the greatest at boss battles, alright? I'm not. We know this. No, so this is the battle. I was very, very frustrated with Marjorie and Casimir. Casimir ended up, like, just laying on the ground. And I'm not really sure, because you couldn't, like, help her back up or anything. Like, she's just literally on the ground. I'm not really 100% sure what was wrong with her. I don't know if I missed something in that or what, but it was just, she was not in the battle, just without a Casimir, which, I mean, not the most useful, but sometimes an extra hand is nice to have. And then Marjorie automatically pathed to the vortex crystals, which was fine because you could not attack the boss with the vortex crystal there. But there were several times where she was just standing in a terrible place, and because she was there, the big guy was targeting her and putting the glitter fire in the spot I needed to be. And so I had to like, I tried a couple different things and I was like, nah, it's just not gonna let me. Fortunately, it was only twice that it really happened where the vortex crystal was underneath one of the color shards, so you had to go get you had to kill a mini facet, get its color, get a fragile debuff, and then attack the vortex crystal. You couldn't get the shield. Like, as soon as you got the shield, it took your color shard away. So it was fortunately the vortex crystals only spawned underneath the actual color things like twice. So once I figured that out, and like, but Marjorie was just camped on this vortex crystal underneath this color thing and like just surrounded by glitter fire, and I'm like, I can't, like, I physically like cannot do anything here, because as soon as I get a fragile thing and step onto the glitter fire, like, I am dead. It is at least 500 points of damage just standing on the thing for a millisecond. Like, I cannot physically do anything, and I just had to like time it to where the glitter fire just wasn't, like, I had to wait it out. So it took longer than it needed to. So I was not the happiest with Marjorie for this nonsense. I was not, because if she had just like ran away, if she had targeted like the mini facet instead of the vortex crystal, like, it would have been a little easier. And I mean, it's an NPC, so it's not gonna have great it's not gonna have great targeting. I get that. I understand. I was just frustrated. I was just frustrated with her. And then I was even more frustrated that Casimir was just like down and out for the count. Like I said, for no reason that I could really tell. Like, in the past they've been like, oh, my powers are nullified, or oh, this or that or the other thing. This, like, I didn't really see her get knocked down. And Marjorie's freaking invulnerable, apparently. Like, she took a beating during this fight, which, again, NBC, I understand, but it's like, good lord. So it was just, and I mean, there have been other fights, like the fight with Rox, and I don't remember his name now. For her storyline, like, yeah, they he didn't die either, didn't get knocked out or whatever, which, fine, okay, NPCs are indestructible when they feel like it, so that's fine. But even here, like, as soon as you were done, like, just pop right back up. Like, excuse me? You could have just, what? So I'm assuming there was something about the facet that made her weaker. She got knocked down. I don't know. Casimir is just not my favorite. She's not. So we did it. We got through it. We see the Master of Peace get the egg, and we go back to Ogden, and we say, oh hey. Oops. We say, oh hey, this is what I saw. And he's like, oh cool, did you see this? I'm like, no. Oh, well, you're not supposed to know yet. Okay. I didn't know Visions got to pick and choose what I was supposed to know and not know. So, but then it kind of this is just like a roundabout way to be like, yeah, go find the Master of Peace again. Like, that's literally, it didn't really give me much to go on. Just literally go find the Master of Peace. Okay, isn't that what we were doing anyway? Alright, so yeah, I'm gonna hopefully work on the next one. Might be slightly different format. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Sorry, I kind of spaced a couple bits and pieces here and there, but that's all fine. So thank you guys so much for watching and have a wonderful day. Bye.